Anyone ever have an inner critic that tells you sometimes, you can't do this, you're not enough? Do you ever have that little critic, little on your shoulder? I call it the little cowardly Jill that sometimes talks to me. Anyone have that critic? Does anyone have a whole committee of critics that's sometimes in your head? So what warriors do is they challenge that critic, and they don't let that critic keep talking. So I'm going to give you a strategy, and that is when you do hear that inner critic telling you you're not good enough, you're not going to be able to do it, you have the power to turn down the volume on that critic and instead replace it with a positive, you can do it. Now, this is not happyology. Let me just set the record straight here, because sometimes when I start talking about this, people are like, oh boy, are we just talking about rainbows and unicorns and just positive thinking? What we need to do when you have this inner critic is, I want you to speak truth to yourself. Because when you say that, I'm a loser, I can never do it, that's actually not a fact. The truth is, you can do it. You're running into some adversity. It's not going to be easy, but you're able to. Blair mentioned it from the stage earlier today. What is optimism? Optimism is when you recognize the reality of what's happening. You have to be realistic about the challenge that you're facing, but you have to have the belief that you will be able to overcome it. So when I talk about the warrior mindset, imagine a Navy SEAL getting up for battle and him having this little voice in his head. He's not going to take that. He's going to turn down the volume and turn up the volume on the positive self-talk to overcome. So instead of listening to the inner critic, I want you to take the inner critic and just flick him off your shoulder. Instead, start telling yourself the right messages, the truth. The easiest strategy I can tell you to learn the habit of doing this, because it's easier just to say that, like, oh, just make the inner critic stop talking, comes from Dr. Karen Ryvek. When I was at Penn and she was lecturing, this was hilarious. Like, you know, you're at this kind of fancy school, and she's a New Yorker. She walks in. In the first minute, she drops 2 F-bombs, and I knew I loved her right there. And she's the one talking to us about how to change, develop that mindset, that resilient mindset. And she basically said this: if the voice in your head is not helping you accomplish your goals, you'd be pretty smart to do something about it. And the easiest strategy is, imagine that little voice in your head, the critic, is your best friend or maybe your daughter or a loved one saying it out loud about themselves. Imagine that in your mind. Think of someone you love. And what if they are saying that to themselves? I'm a failure. I'm never going to be able to do this. What would you say to that friend? What would you say? Shout it out, a few people. No, you're not. That's not true. That's not true. You've had a little setback. So this is what I mean is, I want you to speak truth to yourself. This is not just happyology. This is actually the reality, bringing the reality to you. So whenever that's happening to you, I want you to think of it this way. Would you let anyone say that to your best friend or the person you're thinking of? Or if they said it out loud, what would you say to them? And the answer to that is what you want to say to yourself. You've got to be brave enough to take control of that chatter in your mind. It will make a significant difference, because we got to win the battle in our mind if we want to take action. All right, you guys ready for the second thing? Let's get to the second thing. All right, so warrior mindset is, as a recap, leverage the power of yet. 2, embrace the suck. And number 3, take charge of your self-talk. Now that's just our first strategy. If we look at the definition of bravery, if you remember it, it says nothing about mindset. It says taking action despite fear toward a noble goal. So if you think you can do it, but you don't take a step forward, you're not brave. So we cannot stay in just the mindset. Do you know anyone that is the person that will set goals, do vision boards, and do that every single year, and they never take a step forward? You know who I'm talking about? Right? So I want you to work on mindset, but if we stop at mindset, you're just a dreamer. We got to actually take that step forward.